Hi, my name is Theresa Andersen, and I want to really welcome you to this episode of Ducking into Wisdom in order to create more self-awareness and to start cultivating more ease in your life. In each of these episodes, we'll be exploring new ways of perceiving ourselves and learn how to bring more wisdom practices into our daily lives in order to reconnect with our authentic selves. Life can be challenging, and we could all use a little bit more help, I think, and more wisdom to help us navigate our day-to-day lives with ourselves and with others. In a moment, I'm going to be introducing my guest, Anne Marie. And today we are going to be looking at the poem by Rumi. And Rumi is a 13th century Sufi mystic, well known for his really exquisite poetry. His poems touch on subjects and themes on love, spiritual awakening, and our human connection to what is bigger and feels beyond us. And I invite you to use whatever word resonates with you that would reflect and resonate and represent something that is bigger and feels beyond you. And just hold that as we explore this poem. And the poem today is called The Breezes at Dawn Has Secrets to Tell You. So just relax and invite yourself to just listen as I recite Rumi's poem. The breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. You must ask for what you really want. Don't go back to sleep. People are going back and forth across the doorsill, where the two worlds touch. The door is round and open. Don't go back to sleep. So, in order to help you, the listener, prime your pump about this poem, I want you to just ask yourself and think about a time when you had an experience of awakening, where you had an aha moment that shifted something that you held for a long time. And this awakening, this aha, landed you in new territory, as in it gave you a new way of thinking about yourself. And in order to help you, we're going to riff around, and I'm going to start by asking Anne Marie. First of all, I'd like to welcome and Anne Marie, you and I have been at this kind of self-inquiry for a long time, but both of us have found that poetry really helps us to discover some new things about ourselves. So, Anne Marie, I'm just going to ask you, do you remember a time when you had an awakening, and it could be, example from a long time ago, or because we have different points in our life when we have ahas. And what did that do for you initially, maybe even going back in time when you were just starting to realize you weren't who you thought you were, or you had a long held thought that you were very connected to and believed, and then it really shifted. So why don't we just start there?
Teresa. Uh, what comes to mind is going to a workshop many years ago, and the workshop leader asked us to take a look who we were kind of holding holding hostage in our dungeon within ourselves. It was a bit about who we had resentments towards. And so going into my interior self, and it came to me that who I had in there was myself. I had locked myself up in many different cells in my prison, in my dungeon. And that was really earth shattering to me. And that opened a whole new way of looking at myself.
Okay. And as you're saying that, Anne-Marie, what helped you to not go back to sleep? Did you end up, bringing that more alive, as in journaling about it so that it wasn't just this flash of insight where you go, I had this aha, and then it disappears like lightning in the night sky? When you have that kind of wow moment or that aha, and sometimes it can be subtle and sometimes it can be like a lightning bolt, what did you do to help anchor it so that you weren't going to let it slip away?
Yes, because that so easily happens when you leave these powerful workshops. You go home and you go back into your daily life, and all of that, what you had, those ahas slip away. But for me, it was a real earth-shattering earthquake realization in my life, and so I spent time journaling. I spent time really kind of visualizing a cell, a prison cell, and figuring out what I had locked myself in there with, and sweeping out the corners. And it was diligent work, diligent work. And I also had mentors that I would dialogue with, because in order to do the work, you have to get it outside of yourself and have a noble witness to to unpack what you locked in, what I had locked inside of myself.
So, in order to connect some of this for the listeners, when one of my experiences has been when I've had an aha moment, even reading a book, and if it's a book maybe that I, have some people in my life that are on a similar journey. I mean, that's a big thing to find like-minded people. So that's a sidebar that remind me to go back to. But for example, say if you and we're on the same path, and I go, Anne-Marie, I just read this really great book, and I think it would be a great exploration. Maybe you and I can read it together or get a few more people and start to hold each other accountable to read a chapter, say if it's a self-help book, and to really kind of, ask each other what's going on and what meaning are we making that mean in our own lives with challenges. And then to come up with some ways that we can, have a book review or kind of like a book club around that or book study. So I'm trying to think of ideas that we can support people with when they do have the aha. And, it can be really challenging going back home because I've had the experience where it's like, oh, I know what the answer is. And my buddy or my husband or whoever was in my life, it's kind of like I want them to know what's going on and what can make their life better. So there's kind of a time and a place. And there's, for me, anyways, where I feel sometimes I've learned the hard way that a lot of people aren't as enthusiastic about whatever I've come up with for what might really shift my life. And so, what can you tell me about that from your point of view?
Yes, Teresa, what I have found is that if you come home and spout off what um, your new insights, sometimes it's not as welcome, and it can become judgmental or opinions that are hurled around, and then you feel deflated. So what I have found is to keep that to myself and to continue to work on my discovery. And then it becomes in true in my actions and my behaviors that people notice that there's been a shift.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I'm also thinking that for the listeners that might be new to this or wherever they are in their journey about waking up to some aspect of themselves that they're having a new realization about, it's what are some of the practices that a person can, grab a hold of that are practical and doable that can help them become more self-aware. For example, if I'm being inspired and then I come home and I'm new to this, for example, then maybe what I can do is I can think, okay, I remember meeting a couple of people at, say, a workshop, and in a breakout room, I do have their email, and I wonder if they might need some support or someone that's like-minded to have a bit of discussion or ongoing encouragement, that kind of thing. And then I also think another practical piece might be, I almost feel like the universe, when it knows that we're becoming awake, wants to support us. And what I find, because I've been working on my intuition for decades, and everybody has really great intuition, but you got to prime your pump around that. So it's like to become more self-aware and aware of what's in your environment and in your atmosphere. And so if you're wondering, I have a question about what my next step might be. And then you are by a bus that goes by, and there's this message that when you read it, it's like, wow, that really landed with me. And it gave me an idea of what I should do next. Or if I'm overhearing a conversation that someone's saying, and it's the exact guidance that seems to land in my gut. So, do you have any other kind of practical, doable things that might help?
You say it's excellent to develop a community that you can dialogue with. And in today's world, it's very easy to FaceTime with someone, to encourage a group to connect on a regular basis and work with what you have in front of you. Um, that has been a gem and a treasure in my life. The other about journaling and just allowing yourself to just write on the page, um, and even using your opposite hand, because to write and things come out much differently than you'd expect, and just allow it and then marvel at what was written on the page.
Yeah, the non-dominant hand. So, because it's like that inner child piece of us that takes a long time to write or communicate, might say a lot with a few words if you're patient and just try to spend some time tapping into what might be within you, the wisdom, because we all have wisdom and we all have intuition. And I think one of the takeaways I hope that the listeners have today about this poem is to just know that you're not alone. There's people that are in similar situations that want to continue getting and making momentum. And so be kind and gentle with yourself. The main thing is to do little steps and to be consistent. And if it's journaling, for example, pick one thing that you can kind of do to build some momentum, or it might be having a goal in the future. What's another resource or workshop or person I can reach out to? Something that's small, because it all takes courage, and you want to make it that something that's not like jumping off the deep end, but something where I find that the universe, when you put things out there, it more than meets you halfway.
One other thing I'd like to just pop in with, Teresa, is an affirmation. Uh, and it can be a very, very simple thing that you tell yourself every morning. For instance, I am filled with love and joy today. And that can be your guide.
All right, that's really good. So there's so much that rich discussion that we've had here today. And I encourage everyone out there, just start where you're at and just be consistent. So I want to thank you very much, Anne-Marie, for being here. And I always love spending time with you. And I just want people out there to know that we've cultivated this relationship. We all have different people in our lives, but we have a relationship where we can end up doing all kinds of inner work side by side and going to different places. So my wish is that people find someone that they too can, over time, have a meaningful person in their life on their life's journey, because we're all walking the path and all walking each other home on some level. And it's the discernment of knowing who's available and who is committed because you want to continue to stay awake. I love Rumi's poem. And so until next time. I wish you well.